Call to the Nations, Chapter 2, The Oneness of Mankind. Humanity, whether viewed in the light of man's individual conduct or in the existing relationships between organised communities and nations, has, alas, strayed too far and suffered too great a decline to be redeemed through the unaided efforts of the best among its recognised rulers and statesmen, however disinterested their motives, however concerted their action, however unsparing in their zeal and devotion to its cause. No scheme which the calculations of the highest statesmanship may yet devise, no doctrine which the most distinguished exponents of economic theory may hope to advance, no principle which the most ardent of moralists may strive to inculcate, can provide, in the last resort, adequate foundations upon which the future of a distracted world can be built. No appeal for mutual tolerance which the worldly wise might raise, however compelling and insistent, can calm its passions or help restore its vigour. Nor would any general scheme of mere organised international cooperation, in whatever sphere of human activity, however ingenious in conception or extensive in scope, succeed in removing the root cause of the evil that has so rudely upset the equilibrium of present-day society. Nor even, I venture to assert, would the very act of devising the machinery required for the political and economic unification of the world, a principle that has been increasingly advocated in recent times, provide in itself the antidote against the poison that is steadily undermining the vigour of organised peoples and nations. What else might we not confidently affirm but the unreserved acceptance of the divine program enunciated with such simplicity and force as far back as 60 years ago by Baha'u'llah, embodying in its essentials God's divinely appointed scheme for the unification of mankind in this age, coupled with an indomitable conviction that the unfailing efficacy of each and all of its provisions is eventually capable of withstanding the forces of internal disintegration, which, if unchecked, must needs continue to eat into the vitals of a despairing society. It is towards this goal, the goal of a new world order, divine in origin, all-embracing in scope, equitable in principle, challenging in its features, that a harassed humanity must strive. To claim to have grasped all the implication of Baha'u'llah's prodigious scheme for worldwide human solidarity, or to have fathomed its import, would be presumptuous on the part of even the declared supporters of his faith. To attempt to visualise it in all its possibilities, to estimate its future benefits, to picture its glory, would be premature at even so advanced a stage in the evolution of mankind. All we can reasonably venture to attempt is to strive to obtain a glimpse of the first streaks of the promised dawn that must, in the fullness of time, chase away the gloom that has encircled humanity. All we can do is to point out, in their broadest outlines, what appears to us to be the guiding principles underlying the world order of Baha'u'llah. That the unrest and suffering afflicting the mass of mankind are in no small measure the direct consequences of world war, and are attributable to the unwisdom and short-sightedness of the framers of the peace treaties only a biased mind can refuse to admit. It would be idle, however, to contend that the war, with all the losses it involved, the passions it arose, and the grievances it left behind, has solely been responsible for the unprecedented confusion into which almost every section of the civilized world is plunged at present. Is it not a fact, and this is the central idea I desire to emphasize, that the fundamental cause of this world unrest is attributable not so much to the consequences of what must sooner or later come to be regarded as a transitory dislocation in the affairs of a continually changing world, but rather to the failure of those into whose hands the immediate destinies of peoples and nations have been committed, to adjust their systems of economic and political institutions to the imperative needs of a rapidly evolving age? Are not these intermittent crises that convulse present-day society due primarily to the lamentable inability of the world's recognised leaders to read aright the signs of the times, to rid themselves once for all of their preconceived ideas and fettering creeds, and to reshape the machinery of their respective governments according to those standards that are implicit in Baha'u'llah's supreme declaration of the oneness of mankind, the chief and distinguishing feature of the faith he proclaimed. For the principle of the oneness of mankind, the cornerstone of Baha'u'llah's world-embracing dominion, implies nothing more nor less than the enforcement of his scheme for the unification of the world, the scheme to which we have already referred. In every dispensation, writes Abdu'l-Baha, the light of divine guidance has been focused upon one central theme. In this wondrous revelation, this glorious century, the foundation of the faith of God and the distinguishing features of his law is the consciousness of the oneness of mankind. How pathetic, indeed, are the efforts of those leaders of human institutions who, in utter disregard of the spirit of the age, are striving to adjust national processes suited to the ancient days of self-contained nations to an age which must either achieve the unity of the world as undumbrated by Baha'u'llah or perish. At so critical an hour in the history of civilization, it behoveth the leaders of all the nations of the world, great and small, whether in the East or in the West, whether victors or vanquished, to give heed to the clarion call of Baha'u'llah, and thoroughly imbued with a sense of world solidarity, the sin quo non of loyalty to his cause, arise manfully to carry out in its entirety the one remedial scheme he, the divine physician, has prescribed for an ailing humanity. Let them discard once for all every preconceived idea, every national prejudice, and give heed to the sublime counsel of Abdu'l-Baha, the authorized expounder of his teachings. You can best serve your country, was Abdu'l-Baha's rejoinder to a high official in the service of the federal government of the United States of America, who had questioned him as to the best manner in which he could promote the interests of his government and people. If you strive in your capacity as a citizen of the world to assist in the eventual application of the principle of federalism underlying the government of your own country to the relationships now existing between the peoples and nations of the world.